So, listen, Ajmal, welcome to Success or Excuses podcast. Now, I've been following you for quite a while. You're very prolific on social media and that. Go and tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about you before we dive right in.
I studied law at Glasgow Uni, worked in London for 10 years with a global management consultancy. After 10 years, I thought, I've got a burning desire to run my own business, set up... took over my dad's little restaurant. It was a tiny 30-seater restaurant in Hamilton. Dad was struggling with it. He was close to retirement. No, he was past retirement age. And I thought, I could really do something. So I took over this tiny little business, grew it into the biggest takeaway operation in Britain, ran that for 12 years, sold it, because I took it to as far as I could, sold it, and then started Boss Pizza, and now we are rolling out Boss Pizza across the country. So in a nutshell, that's who I am and my background.
Amazing.
And then on social media, I love talking about business. I could talk about business all day long.
So what is it if I had to say to you, what's enabled, because you're a very successful business person, right?
Okay.
So you've came from a corporate background, you moved into your dad's business, and everything you touch seems to turn to gold. We'll see you're very, very good at being successful, right?
Right.
What is it that enables you to do that? What is that?
I think I've got a work ethic that is on a different level. And see, when you work with that level of intensity and that level of pace, you can smoke your competition. And that's what I've done. And one of the things I get criticised for a lot on social media, I talk about this a lot. When I first started my business in 2009, I didn't have dinner with my wife for 6 years. I didn't see my son for 6 years. These are the sacrifices anyone has got to make if they want to be super successful. And I made those sacrifices, and since that date, 2015, after 6 years of hard work, I've never had to worry once about money, holidays, cars, properties, houses, nothing. So you make the sacrifice up front and then reap the benefits for years to come.
And that's the difference when you've got that entrepreneurial mindset is, because I know a lot of people that work hard, right, but are not successful. So it's the working hard on something, isn't it? It's having that vision. It's what is it that drives you? So there's work, and by the way, I'm a big believer in working hard. I still work 7 days a week. Great. Not because I need to, because I love what I do and I want to be ahead of the game. Yeah. Right. So that's kind of my mindset. I've got a really clear vision. What was it in those early days? What did it? You knew you wanted to start a business. You sold a business. What is that? The hard work's always for something.
Yeah, I think just being brought up with that immigrant mentality, brought up in Glasgow in the 70s. It wasn't a good time. I'm 50 years old. I know I don't look it, but back in those days, life was tough. I mean, my mum and dad, there was a time when 5 of us used to sleep in one bed in the kitchen. Right, it was a 1-bedroom flat, and in the next door room, it was my dad, and then like 6-7 relatives, like all male relatives living in that room. Life in the 70s was very, very tough, and that frugality, it never left my parents, because they came from absolute nothing, and then we were brought up with that mentality. So I think as young kids, we didn't have the designer gear. We didn't even have the gear, the normal stuff. We didn't have the toys, the games. We didn't go on holidays, because our parents were just always working. So that's the mentality that we were brought up with, and I think it stood us in good stead, because we've just got that hard work, that ethic. Yeah. Driven into us.
Absolutely. By the way, I've got a similar story. My dad he never ever took a day off in his life. He's self-employed, right, and he is a grafter. Yeah, and that was ingrained in us, that work hard, get out there, stop making bloody excuses. Just work hard, have an idea of what it is you're working hard for. And he was a graft. And by the way, my dad is 73 and he still works. Excellent. Not because he needs to. Yeah, because he wants to. He wants to. Yeah, that way. His mind is, if I retire, I'm going to die. So he'd rather drop dead at work than drop dead in an armchair. What I mean? That's his mentality. Yeah. And that kind of keeps him going. So to tell us, I want to go to Boss Pizza because I want to kind of talk about the Boss Pizza thing because it's really growing arms and legs and walking.
Yep.
It's really starting to grow. So kind of tell us about the early years. And the reason I want to ask is there'll be people listening to us, right? And they'll be starting up businesses and they'll be finding it tough. Because business is no easy. Yeah. It's easy once you understand how business works, but it's hard work. So talk about those early years. What would you be advising or helping or saying to them? Because we all have doubts, right?
Easy. The one figure that anyone who wants to start a business, they must get this into their head. 18 months. That's how long it takes for a business to get going.
Easy.
I can speak from experience. I've done this 3 times and each time has taken 18 months. So now you're saying Boss Pizza's flying. Yes, it is. I started in September 2023 full time on this project. And it's now been about 18 months and now it's starting to really fly. Yeah. The first few months were horrendous. There was a time where we had £2,000 in the bank. That was it. We were this close to actually failing. But I knew that business is, you play the long game.
Absolutely.
You have to work and it takes at least 18 months for the business to gain momentum. And the reason, no matter how great you are at what you do, it just takes time for the consumers to come around to your way of thinking.
The thing, isn't it? That no like and trust.
Exactly.
I was actually talking about this in another podcast. We were in business 2.5 years, right? The first 18 months by we were horrendous, right? Because nobody knew you, nobody liked you, nobody trusted
you.
And I'm a huge believer in marketing, and I want to talk about this next. I'm a huge believer in marketing. Yourself and your business. Get out there and talk to anybody that'll listen.
Yeah.
Get out there and get your name out there, get your brand out there. You know, if it means plastering it all your shirts, get out there and market yourself. And that's what I did those first 18 months to 2 years, was just self-market, market. Talk a bit about that, because I know you're a huge believer in marketing and self-promotion. And
you've got to get out there and tell the world that you do a great job. You've got to use every opportunity to promote your brand. And I've got some crazy stories. I once got stopped by the police on the M74. This is the new motorway. It's a 50 mile limit. I was doing like 63 or something anyway. So they stopped me, got the menus out, and I said, right guys, I own, that time my previous business, Mushtaq's, I said, I own Mushtaq's. If you're ever in Hamilton, try it. And we started talking about curries and different flavour combinations. The point is, I've been stopped by the police, and even then, I'm marketing the business. And now what I do for Boss Pizza, wherever I go, I've got my business cards. I look for the opportunity to strike up a conversation with anyone, hand them a business card. You know what? They've heard about Boss Pizza then. And that's how you promote it. You just use every single opportunity to promote you and to promote your business.
Absolutely. So sticking with the marketing and promotion then, you're obviously constantly learning new techniques, and whether it's TikTok or whether it's, you know, because I was watching a video you last week and you were giving out free pizzas.
Yeah.
What is it? Where do you get the ideas? How does this stuff come to you? Because it was brilliant. Right. I'm like, wow, because you had cars stopped in the street and everything.
Yeah, so we launched the Walsall store. We're doing training with the team. There's loads of pizzas coming out the oven. So what I did is I thought, you know what, let's stop the traffic, create a bit of noise, create a bit of commotion, and hand out free pizzas. And you know what, they're going to go home and they're going to talk about it. So we handed out dozens of pizzas, and I'm thinking, that's dozens of people who have driven past this shop. They've just got a free pizza. And every time they drive past, they're going to remember that.
Absolutely.
And that is priceless. That might have cost us £100 or something, whatever it is. So I like to do marketing that's big and expensive, like billboards and branded cars, but also down at consumer level.
Absolutely.
That's where you win. You know, give someone a free pizza, give someone a discount, give someone a bit of extra love when they come into your store.
Absolutely.
It's all of these little things add up.
Absolutely. I talk to this week. There's an Indians I go to every Saturday, and I play at the owner. Obviously, you know, my mind's. I'm always thinking about how we could do things different, and I says to him, did you know that when people like me, real consumers, when they come in, see just and a maybe new thing that the chefs try and come out and say, no, here's a wee mush booze, or here's a wee this. I says, people, that really reacts with people. They'll remember that, and they'll come back.
Exactly.
And I says to them, for example, I says, you know, at the end of a person's meal and they give them like the limoncello and things like that. I says, have you ever thought of doing that? He's like, no. I says, go to Aldi's. You're not charging for it. You're getting it away free. Buy some bottles and you're getting, there's a wee drink for at the end of their meal.
Right.
And he started doing it and he's mobbed.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, good.
Because I'm just always thinking about things when I'm a consumer.
Yeah.
What is it that, like, if I can have a good meal and great service and I will never forget it.
Yeah.
I can have a good meal and shit service and I will never forget it.
Exactly.
And it's always about trying to put yourself in the consumer shoes, isn't it?
Yeah.
With marketing. And I think that's one of the big keys. I want to stick with marketing again, the importance of marketing.
Yeah.
Because I believe, right, that we work with hundreds of businesses, right, every year. And one of the big things that they lack is marketing. And I believe that's why they struggle.
Yeah.
Because they have these constant peaks and troughs, right? So what is it? What would you say to people if they were listening about the marketing and the thinking outside the box and what? Because you're obviously really good at it.
Yeah. I spend 3 hours a day marketing without fail. Yeah, 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Every single day is marketing for us. There's no point doing a good job if no one knows about it. I go back to that mantra. And then the other thing where we really win, and that's one of the reasons my TikToks are doing well, I'm never out there selling anything in my TikToks. I don't say, oh, here's 1, 2, 3 tips. Now buy my book or buy my course. I've got nothing to sell. You just give real value to your audience, to your consumers, and that's where you win.
Absolutely.
So we've got, we've generated hundreds of millions of views on TikTok, and I'm not out there selling. And I think that's what resonates with people, the fact that we're not selling and they're just getting good, honest advice.
And I think that's what you know, attracted me was watching your videos, because it's just advice. You're constantly just advising people the things that they should be looking at, what they're doing. If you're not on TikTok, get on TikTok. If you and get on it as often as you possibly can. And because there's so many conflicting stories out there. People will say, oh, you know, like to know, you know, you post once a day and TikTok, don't overdo it. And I always think to myself, like, whatever works for you, do that.
Yeah, exactly.
If it works, do more of it.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
And I'm a huge believer in marketing. By the way, we've got huge marketing budgets.
Good.
And if you're, because I'm a believer, if you're not marketing your business, people don't know.
Exactly.
Now, not everybody's ready to buy.
Yeah.
But when they're ready to buy, when they're ready to get a try a new pizza shop, you want to make sure that it's Boss Pizzas.
Yeah.
You know, when people are ready to go and do leadership training or business training, the very first thing I want them to think is, oh, I remember that James guy.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Exactly.
That's what I think is the real magic of good marketing.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Exactly.
You get that emotion.
Yeah. You could spend a lot of money in marketing and not see the result for months, sometimes years down the line.
Absolutely.
And that's it. You hit the nail on the head. You do the marketing. You make sure you're front of mind in the consumer's head. And then when they do make a decision to buy, you're the only brand that's actually in there.
Absolutely.
In fact, I'll tell you something quite funny. My marketing strategy, high level, I don't think I've spoken about this, is my marketing strategy is to stamp the Boss Pizza logo into your brain. So when you're dreaming at night time, you're dreaming of Boss Pizza, and that's it. So everywhere we're hitting the customers with 30, 40 different channels, TikTok, billboards, social media, newspapers, press releases, free promote, you name it, we're hitting them from every possible angle. So exactly that, when they do think of buying pizza, it's Boss Pizza that they're thinking of. Or
when a new franchise opens up in a local town, they're going, oh, that's that Boss Pizza guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real magic, because I mean, I watch all the stuff, right? I watch all it because I think it's some of the stuff's hilarious.
Oh, right. Okay.
Just it always seems like you have so much fun.
Yeah.
Everything you do around marketing, like you have fun when you're talking your videos, you have fun when you're on other podcasts. You really enjoy
Yeah.
What you do.
Yeah, I love the game of business. I love marketing, and I love I love the challenge of growing a business. And you're right, I do love it, and I could talk about it all day long. This podcast is 45 minutes. I could be here for 10 hours and 45 minutes talking about business.
It's fantastic. So let's go back to the franchise, right? So. When you have a new franchise owner that comes in and says, "Oh, I want to open my box pizza," what do you do for them? You know, obviously they're buying the name and all that. What is it? So I'm assuming you actually support them in that business growth and
exactly, yeah. We're very particular in who we let through the door because a lot of people have got a dream of running a business, but they might not necessarily have the skill or the aptitude or the attitude. They might have the money, but there's so much more to running a successful business. And then beyond that, we do everything for them. We go so far above and beyond that it's actually ridiculous. So for example, if you, for talking's sake, you want to buy a franchise, we could do the paperwork. That takes like a matter of days. You could close your eyes and come and see me again in 12 weeks' time and the shop's ready to go.
Wow.
Zero headache. So my job has been...
branded, kit out, ready to go.
Everything, staff fully trained. My job has to break down the growth of a national chain into 16 different parts and then do each of those 16 parts in such a swift and streamlined fashion that it causes zero headache for the franchisees. That's what I'm building towards. My job is to make your job as simple and stress-free as possible.
And that's it. So you'd go in there and the systems, the processes, the market strategies, you're basically teaching them so that they come in, they buy the franchise. They've obviously, there's more than just buying a franchise, as you said, because you're going to work hard at it. You know, as you said, 18 months, be prepared to put in the time and it will turn around. And I'm assuming you're basically coaching them, the franchisees through that whole process.
And they've got everything. They've got the full blueprint. Let's talk about... Forget franchising. Let's talk about leadership and management. Anyone in leadership or management position, their job should be very simple. You should be looking at your team like a hawk and saying, how can I make your job as simple as possible, as simple and as stress-free as possible? And that's what I did for my previous business. We grew it to being I grew it to being the biggest takeaway operation in Britain. And I would religiously watch the team, watch what they're doing. Right? Why are you doing that? You're doing that. How can I make your job easier there? What equipment do you need that would help you make that job easier? Do you need another team member to join your team? I would give guys, throw money at them, throw extra resources, extra machinery, whatever they needed to do their job better. I would support them 100%. And then people wonder, well, how on earth did you build the biggest kitchen in Britain? Or how did you output one meal every 15 seconds? Exactly that. I made the job as simple as possible.
A conveyor belt, basically.
Conveyor, yeah, exactly. And I gave the team the best possible tools. So if you're a manager and leader and you want your team to do well, have a look at yourself first.
Absolutely.
Are you making life for your team as simple and as stress-free as possible? If you are, you're on the right path.
Couldn't agree more. And that's obviously my forte, leadership and management.
Oh, right, okay. Let's drill down more into that.
That's what we do as a business.
Let's drill down more into that.
It's my thing that because real leaders are all about the people. That's it. That's their number one role. Is obviously the vision. Right, you've got the leader must have the vision. Because sometimes only you can see it. Right, sometimes only you can see it. And even when you try to explain to your team, they're like,
they don't get it.
They don't see what you can see. Your job is to convince them. And make their job easier, and make their life easier, and make them feel like they're part of something.
Exactly.
Because once they feel they're part of something, so they're not a cook or they're not a mixer, or they're actually part of. By the way, this business fails if you're not in it. And here's the value that you add. And if you can make them believe and really buy into that.
Exactly.
That's leadership, isn't it? And
it's not easy to make the team buy into your vision. So I remember back in 2009, I said to the team, it was only 6 of them, I gathered, this is when I first took over the business, this is when I first started in this journey. I said, we want to create the biggest takeaway operation in Britain. And they just looked at me like, what on earth are you on? And they just didn't believe it. And you know what? You stick to your path, you carry on building the business, and then after about 6 months, they started to realise actually something different's happening here. After a year, the momentum's building, and then after about 18 months, they all knew that this is going to happen. Fact. And then within the space of 3-4 years, we had built the biggest takeaway kitchen in Britain, and we were executing. So it does take time.
Absolutely.
If you're a leader, it does take time for you to convince your team, because you're right, people can't see it, but you know it in your heart and in your mind that that's the way you're going. Another thing I would say about leadership, one of the most effective leadership tools I've ever come across that I implement is I take the finger of blame and I point it at myself.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it.
Is my team not performing the way I want them to? Yeah, whose fault is that? It's my fault.
Absolutely.
Right? Is my business not growing at 10% every year? Whose fault is that? That's my fault.
Absolutely.
And see if you've got that attitude. What it does, you put pressure in yourself to improve things.
Yep.
So at the moment, Boss Pizza is struggling, right? We desperately need to build a team, right? And the question this morning I was asking the team, right, what can we do to make sure that we're resourcing up the team as quickly as possible, right? So straight after this podcast, I'm going to film another video. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to talk to recruitment agencies. I'm going to put posters in the bloody windows. You name it, I'm going to do it. We're struggling now. That's my fault. What am I doing? What am I doing about that?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to do something about that today. So that's what you need to think. That's the way all leaders and managers should think.
I call it self-reflection.
Self-reflection.
Gotta look at yourself, because if you're pointing fingers and placing blame,
exactly,
you're managing, right? You always need to, what am I saying or not saying that they think this is okay? What am I doing or not doing that's enabling the team to perform or not perform?
Exactly.
It's that self-reflection. Quick story for you. So I'm a big believer, right? If your business is not growing, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? And last year I had a huge, so we've doubled in size 4 years in a row.
Right.
This was our 5th year.
Right.
So last year was going into our 5th year.
Okay.
So my plan was double. I'm doubling in size again.
Okay.
And what I realised is the people that were able to take my business to where it was there weren't the same people that were going to double the next. Because getting to 1 million, I didn't find, see the moving for skint to 1 million. I didn't notice it. Right. It just happened. Right. Going back to that hard work. I think I actually remember you saying one day you put your head up and you were like, "Oh, I'm a millionaire."
Yeah.
Because you don't know, because you're so busy building that vision and building it. And it was my wife that actually turned around and told me, "Oh, by the way, you didn't know we turned over £1 million this year." Did we really?
Yeah, exactly.
So the people that got you to that point are not always the people that's going to take you to the next and the next. And I think that's good leadership as well.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to take the tough decisions as well when you know that somebody's not right.
Yeah.
That's hard, especially because, I mean, my personal example of that was last year. We had April, May, June and July were horrendous.
Right.
And they were really bad. And what did I start to do? Point fingers and place blame.
Right.
I started to blame everybody else.
Right.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute, James. What are you doing? What have you done?
Yeah.
They're your team.
Yeah.
You're leading this team. And I mentioned this in another podcast. I'd actually one of my employees, right, who's an incredible guy, very successful business person in his own right, in the financial crisis lost, I think his business was at 20 million. He used to have a helicopter and everything. Right. And he lost everything. He works for us and helps develop new businesses. And he phoned me up and he says, "James," this is the conversation, James. He says, "I'm probably not going to have a job at the end of this, but you need to know." And he painted me a new arse.
All right.
He gave it to me. He said, you're pointing fingers, you're placing blame, whoa, you are going to lose this team. And that was like a baseball bat off the back of my head. I'm like, I'm actually not living my own values here. Because of the pressure I'd put myself under, I started to blame everybody else for the business not growing, and it was me. Yeah. And as soon as I took that self-reflection and I sat down and I went, okay, how do I fix it?
Right, yeah.
Everything changed.
Yeah, exactly.
But I didn't have the right people in the business that enabled me. Like, you know how when you get to a certain point, you need help and support.
Yeah.
You need it.
Absolutely.
Right? So you need people there behind you. You need people, pushing you on and driving you forward. And I think when we hit that kind of 1.2 million mark, I felt like the core team weren't the right team.
Right.
And that was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Because it was people that I liked and I trusted, and having to let them go and bring in people who are better than me.
Yeah.
Right? Because I actually started to say, okay, could that person run this business as good as me? Yes. Okay, they're in.
Right, okay.
In senior positions, because I'm building our business, right, taking it to the next level. And I started to hire thinking, could they come in and sit in this seat? They absolutely could, right. And I started to hire people like that, because then I thought, okay, they are the people that's going to be able to help me take the business to that next level. Good. So have you ever went through something like that, where you've had to tell people, about they're having the right people? Because I think it's critical.
Absolutely. You need to recruit the right people, and that's exactly that's the point I'm at now. Yeah. As I said, we're struggling for the right level of skill set, and one of the disadvantages we've got, we're based in Hamilton. I think if we were a Glasgow city centre business, or Birmingham or London, it'd be a different ballgame, but so we're actually we've got a much smaller pool to attract people from. But yeah, you're right. You need to build the right team, and if someone's not right for the team or toxic, you need to get rid of them.
Absolutely.
And these are tough conversations.
I know.
And the worst thing you can do is actually tolerate toxic behaviour, because that could just that could bring down the organisation.
Absolutely. I had to let go of one of our salespeople just a few weeks ago, and I could see the other sales staff, I could see they were almost, their chin was going down.
Yeah.
Because they're obviously looking at this person saying, well, hold on a minute, they came in as this sales guru.
Yeah.
They've sold nothing in 2 months. Yet, in my first 2 weeks, I was doing this and I was doing, and I could see it.
Exactly.
So I had to actually step in and go, listen, unfortunately, you're not the right fit, and here's the reasons why. Yeah. And they weren't happy about it.
Yeah.
Because they were like, excuses.
Yeah.
And I went, no.
The risk is, if you tolerate toxic behaviour in your organisation, see your existing A players, you'll just piss them off.
Absolutely. They'll go.
And you can end up losing them.
Absolutely.
So it's a double loss for your business.
Absolutely. Anyway, listen, before we start to wrap up.
My God.
So people listening to this, right, so this is about success or excuses, right? The path that we all take in life. And I know you'll have seen people who, they have that victim mentality, right?
Yeah.
This happened to me, that happened to. What bit of advice? So we talked about marketing, we talked about hard work.
Yeah.
What else? When at those early years, or because there'll be a lot of businesses out there, and you know this and I know this, they're 5, 6, 7 years in,
right,
and nothing's changed the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
What would you say to them? What's the one thing? Say, listen, here's my advice to you. This is what I think you really need to do. What would that be? There
is, great question. There's so many things, but one of the things that helped me grow my business to being the biggest in its sector in the UK was I never worried about the money for myself. I never took a wage for 6 years. I never worried about buying myself a nice car. I never worried about anything. Any money that I made, I put back into the business. And here's a key thing, James. Every single decision I made was, is this good for the customer? Will the customer like this? Right? Shall we get a fleet of branded delivery cars? Will the customers appreciate faster delivery? Yes, they will. We'll take on more staff. The speedier service, will the customers like that? Yes, they will. Shall we buy in better quality ingredients? Will the customers like that? Yes, they will. So always I put the customer at the centre of every single decision, because in business, it's the customer that pays the wages.
Absolutely.
And that's how we won. So I was driving a clapped out car for a while, and my wife said, come on, you need to buy yourself a decent car. And I don't wear any designer clothes. I'm a very simple living guy. So I always put the customer first, and that's how we won.
Aye. So customer first. Get your marketing in gear.
Yeah.
Be willing to put in the hours.
Yeah.
And always put your customer at the forefront.
Exactly.
That's it.
And one of the things, in every single team meeting or new member of the team that I come across, and I did this in the recent branch opening in Walsall as well, I said, right, who's the boss? And they're like, I said, who pays the wages? And they're like, You. No, not me. The customer pays your wages. I'm just the middleman. I repeat this day in, day out to my team. If there's customers over here, I take the money from them and I can pay you. If there's no customers over here, we don't even have a business. So that's the one thing I use to drum into the team. It's the customer that pays your wages. It's not me.
Absolutely, love it. There's another thing that I say to my team very, very regularly, and I always say to them, anything when it comes to customer satisfaction and adding value, I always say, does it add value to the business and does it add value to the customer?
Exactly.
See if it's 2 yeses,
do it.
I don't need to approve anything.
Yeah.
Right? Just go do it.
Yeah.
As long as it adds value to the business and it adds value to your customers,
yeah,
just get it done.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of my mantras all the time is just listen. Actually, and now that they ask themselves the questions, I say it that often. They ask themselves, does it add value to the customer and does it add value to the business? Yes.
Yeah.
Done.
In fact, I've got a quote here. It's on my phone, right? I'll just read it out, right? Oh no, it's not here. It's actually on my phone, but
grab your phone.
Don't worry.
All right, okay.
It is. Entrepreneurship is living your life for a number of years like no one else is willing to, so you can live your life in a manner in which no one else can. So something along those lines, and that's not the exact quote, but that's it. You've just got to make the sacrifice, and if you make the sacrifice, you can live like a king for the rest of your days. And,
absolutely.
And I'm blessed. That's the position we're in at the moment.
Absolutely.
You know, I've put in the sacrifices, and now it's been plain sailing ever since then. And most people just aren't willing to make the sacrifice.
Absolutely. And by the way, as a sacrifice, those early years, in fact, as I said to you earlier, I'll still work. See on a Saturday and a Sunday, see if I've not got anything to do, I sit and I work on marketing and I work in video content and I'm always working.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
You know, I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm always working. And I can't, sometimes I really struggle to switch off. You know, me and my wife are business partners, so we live and breathe
Good.
the business.
Good.
And I see us lying in bed at night and we're talking about the business.
Yeah.
And it is hard work, isn't it? It's hard work. It's willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do, and consistently just take and learning from them. Because we're going to do mistakes. We're going to get it wrong as well.
Hard work can actually make you happy.
Aye.
And I agree. I'm speaking from experience. So my previous business, I grew it phenomenally successful, and then I just started to cruise in life, and I actually got a little bit, so not depressed, but I was just a little bit flat, no energy, didn't have the oomph. And then when you give yourself a difficult task or a difficult challenge, then I created Boss Pizza, and I thought, you know what, I want to make Boss Pizza into one of the leading pizza brands in the UK. That's the vision, right? Now I spring in my step. I'm back to working 6-7 days a week. I don't even look at the clock. I'm going all over the country doing whatever it takes to promote the business and to get it up and established as a leading brand in the UK. We're very early in that journey. It's going to take many years, but the key thing is I'm here, I'm fired up, and I've got the fire in my belly, the spring in my step again. And in the mornings, I just can't wait to get to the office. I'm up at 8 o'clock and I'm about to sip my coffee, and I thought, you know what, I'll just go to the office and start my day there rather than sitting in the house and sipping coffee for 15 minutes. Let's get to the office and get cracking on with it.
Absolutely. There's something you mentioned there, right? How you describe Boss Pizza. It's a really clear vision you've got there, isn't it? You've really, in your mind, etched what this is going to look like. And that's your driver, isn't it? You know, we've talked about it, like only you can sometimes see it.
Exactly.
And that's your vision, and this is where it's gone, and nobody can tell you any different.
The Boss Pizza vision is to be one of the leading brands in the UK. And when I say that, people snigger, they chuckle, they laugh. I don't care. That's my path. I'm on that path. Just leave me alone. If it annoys you, or if you can't handle it, or if you don't believe it, fine, great. I'm happy for you. Just let me do what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And that's an entrepreneurial mind.
Yeah. Oh,
think outside the box. It's not giving a shit what anybody else thinks.
Exactly. And here's a tip for anyone thinking of starting a business. No matter what you start, there's going to be so much negativity, hate, criticism, and see if you're not mentally resolute and determined, that's enough to derail you.
Absolutely. I lost mates and everything, by the way, when I started up my business.
Yeah.
Like these people who were supposed to be your friends, they all disappear.
Yeah.
They don't want to know you.
Exactly.
Like what?
Exactly.
And everybody's telling you how a great idea is going to be until you do it, and then they're all...
Yeah. And the saddest thing about being successful is the people within your circles are often the people that turn against you. I've experienced that firsthand.
Absolutely.
So I've gone from starting out a business, everyone's cheering from you, to being successful to the point where now those very people that were cheering for me have now sort of turned against me, and they're jealous. There's just so much jealousy.
Do you know the weird thing about, just as you're saying that there, my best friends are now people I met in business, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So my friend group are actually successful business owners.
Yeah.
That's really weird, isn't it? How because they think, they act, they have the same experiences, they've got the same vision, they've got the same drive, and they've became my friends.
Yeah.
Like they've became my close friends, or people I met in business.
Yeah, there's another saying, it goes along the lines of something like, surround yourself with winners, because then you don't have to justify your wins or something. So 9 years ago, I bought a Bentley, right? And I was embarrassed. I hid it around the back of the house. I had some parking spaces at the back of my house. I hid it around the back of my house for about 3 months. I was actually embarrassed to drive this. And I'm thinking, if I'd just surrounded myself with winners, that would, well done, mate. Nice car. Here, give me a shot. Yeah, that's really comfortable. That's nice. Instead of having to hide it, and it's, you're dealing with jealousy and hate. So yeah, you need to surround yourself with people of a similar mindset.
Absolutely. And I found myself, as I said, actually people in business who have that same mindset as you, you're attracted to that.
Yeah.
So because they thought like you, they act like you, they drive cars like you.
Yeah.
They have visions, they understand, and nothing. You can literally talk about anything.
Yeah.
And they're behind you and they get it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, even this having a podcast, when I'm speaking to people, successful business owners, I always learn something as well.
Yeah,
there's always something that I'm constantly learning.
Of course.
But listen, we're getting to that time now.
Go on,
give us another one.
You're always learning, right? You might look at me, or people might look at me and think, oh, this guy's successful, he's got it all figured out. But the reality is, I consider myself a business student. I'm still a student of the game. And if you've got that mentality, you've always got an open mind, and you're always open to learning new skills or new techniques that you can apply to your business. So yeah, I consider myself a business student.
Me too.
Yeah.
Always learn. By the way, I'm one of those weird early risers, right? I'm up at 4:20 in the morning. Not because a book tells me, right? Because we go to the gym every day, we go to bed early, we're up early, and we're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And every morning, right, I go out for a walk. Every morning, hail, rain or snow, and we listen to a podcast or we listen to an audiobook, and it's about business or it's about leadership.
Right.
And I'm always learning.
Right.
Always learning.
That's
and I think it keeps me ahead of the game.
Yeah.
That as you said, I'm a student of life.
Yeah.
Bring it on. And this was the driver for this, is I'm thinking, all these podcasts I listen to, all these audiobooks, imagine I actually got to interview these people and all the wee tips that I can pick up.
Yeah.
So I'm actually getting more out of this than you are.
So you're up at 4:20. What time do you go to sleep?
We're in bed at 8 o'clock. We're normally sleeping by 8:30.
Wow, okay, yeah. Okay.
And we go to the gym every day. So we go, 6 days a week, we go to the gym. Me and my wife, by the way, at 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock. So we go to David Lloyd in Hamilton.
Oh, right, okay.
So we go to the gym during because you can't do it at night because I'm too tired. Right. And in the morning I'm up too early to go to the gym as well, because that's our walk thing. Right. So we've got this really structured day. So night time's no structured, because sometimes I'll sit in the office till 7:30, 8 o'clock and then go straight to my bed.
Right, okay.
I try and finish around 6:30. That's my cut off.
Right.
But if I'm doing something, I'll just sit in.
Yeah.
When I wrote my book, Success Excuses, I was literally shut off for months.
Right.
I mean, weekends, late nights, because I was still running the business.
Yeah.
And I was writing a book, and I was just so into it. I was absolutely into it.
Right.
And my wife's like, I thought she was going to divorce me at one point. She's like, you don't even speak to me any longer.
What's your book called?
Success or Excuses.
Oh, right, okay.
It's called You Can Have Success or You Can Have Excuses.
Yeah.
You cannot have both.
Yeah.
And it's just the journey, growing up in poverty in Glasgow.
Yeah.
In fact, I think one of the things is for the grime of Glasgow to because I lived in Dubai for 12 years, and I had a big fancy house and all that in Dubai, and it's that journey, and it's all the different paths that I could have took in life, and I decided, no, that's not the path for me. And I always took what I would consider the hard path, which is actually the easy path.
Yeah.
You know, it might feel hard at the time.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that.
Yeah.
If you're willing to put in that work, that hard work at the start, work for 6 years and live a better life, that's always been my mantra.
Yeah.
Was, what's the hard path? That's it, because I'm going to learn more. And I used to look at people, I know we're away by time now, but I used to look at people, right? And I never ever thought, I always looked at them more senior than me and thought the only reason is because you get more knowledge than me. So if I gain the knowledge, I'll be able to do that job. I'll be able to do that role. Yeah. So I left school with no qualifications. Right. And I went back to college when I was a bit older, and I got my degree, and I worked in the oil and gas industry, and I worked my way up to the senior C-level suite. But I always used to sit and look at people and think to myself and go, I wonder what they talk about. So I used to look at the leadership table, right? And I used to think, I wonder what they have conversations they have and what they talk about. And I used to say, I'm going to get there one day. And then when I got to the table, they talked about the same shit. Yeah. Football, you know, what kind of nice wine, you know, they talked about the same stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was the driver for the book. It's just that story.
Love that.
We are right at the end.
Nice one.
So if anybody listening wants to know anything about Boss Pizza or reach out to you, how do they get a hold of you? And by the way, I will put it at the end of the podcast, but
I think just follow me on TikTok at Ajmal Mushtaq. I don't really, I'm not really out there promoting anything. So just follow the TikTok account and you get access to the videos that we put out, and it's good value business videos. That's it.
It's great. There's some real good fun stuff there as well. Yeah. Brilliant. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great, nice, and thanks very much. Cheers, thanks.